President Biden has nominated David Chipman to head the ATF. We talked to Brady Christian Heyne about the importance of this nomination and what it means for the gun violence prevention movement. Right now on CSGV at Home. Hello and welcome to CSGV at Home. My name is Andrew Patrick. I'm the Director of Political Communications at the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence. I want to thank you for watching. Today, we're talking about President Biden's nomination of David Chipman to head the ATF and the push in the gun violence prevention community and gun violence prevention advocates for the Senate to confirm him swiftly and have him start getting this job done. We're speaking with the Vice President of Policy at Brady and also a CSGV alum, Christian Heyne. Christian, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me on today, Andrew.
Yeah. So explain briefly what it is the ATF does and why their work is so important to ending gun violence, but also the way they've been hamstrung federally for a while now.
Yeah. No, it's the question, right? And I think it's one of the most important questions. I think, look, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, otherwise known as the ATF, is one of the most important bodies that exists out there for making sure that we're doing everything we can to enforce the laws on the books, right? We often hear from the other side, folks talking about if we just enforce the laws on the books. The ATF is the only agency with the regulatory authority to really do that, right? Because they're the only ones that have oversight over the gun industry and specifically gun dealers. I'll put it this way, Andrew. We oftentimes, look at gun violence, particularly in communities most impacted, most disproportionately impacted, and we approach it with a sense of apathy. And part of the reason is because there are so many firearms on the streets. It's so easy to buy a gun. I mean, in communities across the country, it's easier to buy a gun than it is to buy fresh produce. What we don't ask enough of the time when we see this surging gun violence, when we see that disproportionate impact, is we don't ask how the guns got there, right? Guns don't grow on trees. They are manufactured by licensed manufacturers, sold to licensed dealers, and then somewhere along the way, and in large part, they are often either straw purchased, which means that somebody who can buy a gun buys it, goes through the background check process, and then puts it on the secondary market, or they're stolen. And frankly, there's so much that gun dealers can do to prevent both of those things that if we worked real hard, what we would have is a proactive strategy to stem the flow of illegal guns in our community. So the ATF is the only agency that can do that. So for us, this nomination is historic. It's important. I know we'll talk a little while about how they've been hamstrung to do their job, just like you talked about earlier. But to just sort of set the stage, it's hard to overstate how important this agency is in being able to address gun violence and really enforce those laws on the books in a productive way.
Yeah, we've heard for a long time, just enforce the laws on the books, but then the ATF has not been given the resources to do so effectively. There's been like they're stuck with boxes of paper, right? Like it's an outdated system they're working with. So David Chipman, you and I know David. He's been an incredible person for Giffords, an advisor there, but also he's taught our members of our staff about educating us on everything there is to know about the firearms and the way ATF operates. 30 years there, I believe, an experienced agent at the ATF. Why is he the right person for this job?
Yeah, I mean, that's right. He had a 25-year career at the ATF. He's got a lengthy career in law enforcement, right? He's just the right guy for the job. And as you look at his resume, if you just look at the words on the paper, if David Chipman is confirmed to head up ATF, he will arguably be one of the most qualified directors the ATF has ever had. This is somebody who understands the role and responsibility that agency has. And frankly, it's somebody who has dedicated his entire life to promoting public safety. One of the things we need to talk about is law enforcement's role in what the ATF should be doing, right? To be able to hold the gun industry accountable, because for decades we just haven't allowed them to do that one thing. You mentioned this. It's not only just that the ATF is underfunded. It's not only that the ATF has these obstacles put in their way, but we have spent the last 15 years with only one director, one confirmed director. I mean, this position was made Senate confirmable for a reason. And the NRA and the gun lobby have been incredibly successful at ensuring that there was nobody at the helm. It is unreasonable to expect any agency to be able to thrive or succeed if they don't have a leader. So, as we talk about all these things, as we look at David Chipman's history and his record and what he has devoted his life to do, it's abundantly clear that not only is he qualified, but he is the best man for the job. And I think that's why we're so excited that President Biden has made such a significant push in his first time in office. The last confirmed director, by the way, was B. Todd Jones. That nomination was made by Barack Obama in 2013. He had already had a full term as president without nominating anybody, right? So this is a really meaningful step forward, and I think a clear-cut example of why President Biden has stepped into his role, doing exactly what he promised he would do.
Absolutely. So what is David Chipman's leadership, his experience? What does it mean for the movement? Groups like Brady and CSGV and March for Our Lives and Givers. What does it mean for our efforts to reduce gun violence?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think just above all, I mean, regardless of any part of this conversation, I mean, for the gun violence prevention movement, the role of ATF is essential in us being able to be successful and being able to prevent gun violence, right? And that's not, I think that's true for all Americans. I think any responsible law-abiding gun owner, anybody on any side of the aisle would agree that, we need to make sure that we are doing everything within our power to make sure that firearms that are sold, to somebody who's been hopefully screened, right? Hopefully a background check has been provided. That when those guns are sold to that person, that they stay there, right? Or that we have a sense of sort of that the people who are buying weapons are able and to safely manage them, to safely store them, to use and operate them. And while the other part of that equation, though, is that we know that a very small number of gun dealers are responsible for a vast majority of the guns that proliferate in communities where we see illegal guns. So all of this means that if we want to have a chance to really think about something that's significant, to really think about what it is that we can do to prevent gun violence, prevent the stem of and the flow of illegal guns in our communities, it requires steadfast leadership at the ATF. It requires that ATF is doing everything within their power to prevent that kind of gun violence. And frankly, the history of the ATF has been such that Congress has just been very, very effective at making sure that they can't do their job, right? They have literally prohibited the ATF from sharing any information about where crime guns come from. Since 2000, they have said, you guys can't share this information. There was a series of riders that were attached to as a budget amendment to literally prohibit the ATF from sharing with the public the trace data that we have available to fully understand the scope of the problem. These are huge, huge things that the gun lobby and industry have been putting in place for decades to ensure that ATF cannot do their job. And we need somebody in that role who understands what the scope of that problem looks like and is willing to do everything that they can to enforce those laws on the books. Somebody who understands from a perspective of law enforcement. That someone is David Chipman. That is David Chipman. Exactly right. So we're tweeting, we're putting on social media, #ConfirmChipman. I know you are too. And groups, the attorney generals came out this weekend, and a group of attorney generals came out in support of his state attorney generals in support of his nomination. How can people encourage their senators to support and vote for this nomination? We just named it, right? We got to get out there. We got to make sure that senators know that we just need the right leader, that David Chipman is the right leader, that he's qualified, and that they need to do their job so that he can do his job. And so I think folks have some time to just, share the information that you're sharing on social, right? That you're listing, Andrew, that Brady and other groups are sending as well. There's an incredible video that highlights his history. If you want to just know a little bit more about his biography, you'll see from a lot of these organizations are sharing a biographical video that sort of names and lists why exactly he is the right person for the job. And the hearing hopefully will be happening soon. And when that happens, we need to make sure that the folks in the Judiciary Committee, the committee responsible for putting this nomination on the floor, that they are supportive. We need to make sure that all the senators across all of Congress are supportive. We talk about all the time. The easiest thing to do is to just show up. And so often, I think followers of gun violence prevention get hung up on the idea, well, does anybody really care? Will it really change anything? The answer is yes. If we show up, we win, right? And so that's what we got to do. So if folks have the time, if you know people in critical states, make the phone calls, let your senators know how important the role of ATF is and why it is so necessary that we have a functional leader helming that vital agency. And if we do that, I think that we'll get them confirmed, and we'll be able to really ensure that our government is holding the gun industry accountable if they are acting irresponsibly.
That's right. If we show up, we're going to win. So Christian Heyne, Vice President of Policy at Brady, thank you so much for taking the time, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Thanks so much for having me.